Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Vegan Proteins, Muscles by Brussels Radio. My name is Giacomo.
And I'm Danny.
And this is episode 129. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode, everybody. We are gearing up for the Anaheim Fit Expo right around this time, and I'm guessing it's pretty much back to normal at this point, because the last time we went, attendance-wise, it was back to what it was before the whole pandemic thing. But there was still not quite, it was still fresh energy, this time around I think it's going to be like what it was.
Yeah, I still don't, I'm not 100% sure if conventions and stuff have 100% bounced back from pre-COVID in terms of attendance. I'm just not sure, honestly, so I don't know. But hey, we get to be in the LA area twice in 3 weeks.
Are we going to go to Disney?
We are going to be so jet lagged.
I want to go to Disney. Tell me we're going to go.
I don't know. I don't know if we're going to go. Maybe we could go for a day.
It's like we're right there. Like we literally stay in a hotel that feels like we're...
Like you can see Disneyland from there.
Yeah, like we're in it. And then we're that stone's throw away.
I make no promises, but I will look. We might be able to go for 1 day, which would be better than no days. So...
I'm all for it.
It's probably a mere $400 for us to go for the day, right?
Worth it.
Ay, ay, ay.
Oh, gosh. We are going to not only be tabling, we'll continue to do our presentations at the Healthy Living Pavilion. I'm going to continue to whip up that recipe that I know you all love, that 5-minute vegan taco meat. I'm going to be slinging that year after year because it's a good recipe. And Corinne might be doing a presentation. I'm not sure. It depends if we have the right equipment for it. If he doesn't, he's going to whip up tofu scramble. And let me tell you, that tofu scramble, legit. He starts the day with it, even when he travels too, which I can appreciate someone who likes their creature comforts at home on the go. Because it's like you would think when you're traveling, right? Tofu scramble, maybe not the first thing that comes to mind for breakfast, maybe some oats, something simple, but no, he whips it up. And remember that time, where were we, Danny? We were in... Where's Spiral Diner?
Texas.
We were in Texas. And I think he made scramble for everybody over there. It was kind of cool. Anyway, sorry for that little aside. What are we talking about today, Danny?
Today we are talking about how the perfect plan on paper may not be perfect for you. And what that means and how to interpret it and how to determine if something is right for you or not.
Well, I think the best way to open up this topic and get into a conversation is thinking about what an optimal plan looks like on paper and why someone sticks to that as the reason to get them started and the reason why they feel they need that to get results. So what's optimal on paper, right? Works for high achievers, works for planners, works for type A personalities, works until it doesn't, and you're beholden to the plan. What it doesn't do is it doesn't take you into account. It doesn't factor in your lifestyle, it doesn't factor in how you're feeling, doesn't factor in the fact that plans change, and doesn't factor in the fact that there is no one-size-fits-all formula. There are a lot of things that work and work well, and the principles are tried and true, but there's all kinds of different skills and tools and formulas and shots that you can call as far as what to do. That doesn't even necessarily involve coaching, although, spoiler alert, coaching makes a big difference and can help. Things that you have to consider as opposed to, I need to just determine what my macros should be and I need to follow that. I need to determine what progressive overload is with the best exercises and the best frequency and training intensity and all that, and just do that. I get it. I understand going after the science of it all and putting what's best on paper and putting your best foot forward and following it. But I also do feel like it's a means to an end. So that's where my head's at with what's optimal on paper. It's the easy thing to do to find a quick solution and stick to what works. But I do think it limits your potential to learn more about how something will work for you and work well over time, because plans need to be adaptable and they need to change in order for you to be able to really find success and not blame you not following said program.
Yeah. The way that I like to, so first of all, like, what is the perfect plan? I mean, just that in and of itself is a bit of a misnomer. There is no one perfect plan, but there are what I would consider to sort of be best practices. You know, if somebody was a robot, like just a machine, just an avatar of a human being, I could say best practices are to train each body part 2 to 3 times per week, to get in between 10 to 20 sets per body part per week with these particular movements. And the best practices are for you to get this much protein, break it into this many meals, have it this many minutes before and after your training. I mean, I can make a list of best practices. Like, here's what the science says is best. But the most important thing for results, the number one, 100% most important thing about any plan for results is adherence. If somebody cannot, for any number of reasons, not adhere to the plan most of the time, that might not be the best plan for them. If somebody is insistent that they want to work out 5 days per week, so you make this beautiful 5-day split for them, but they miss Monday every single week, and therefore they're completely missing their, let's say, back day every single week, they're missing their back day every single week. That is not a perfect plan. It is not perfect to not train your back at all. You know what I mean? So even though on paper this looks ideal, I mean, to have a back day on paper wouldn't actually be ideal, but you get what I'm saying. Like, if they're missing the same movements every week, it's not actually ideal. That's actually very far from ideal. What might have been better would have been to just make a 4-day split that hit most of the same points.
Right. And it's so easy to be a coach and have bias and be like, listen, you want this goal, you got to do something, you got to do it because it's accountability and adherence, and just continue to show up, and I'll continue to just bop you over the head and say, do this thing, because you know it's a program that works. Mm-hmm. And you know it's a program that worked for them before. And you're afraid or confused or wondering if it's just an accountability or adherence issue with said client. And this is where the creativity comes into play for both the coach and the client. It needs to be a conversational kind of thing where the both of you need to understand in this type of dynamic, or even if it's self-guided, that, or even if your coach is thinking about what you do, that things change. And just because something works, even if it works for a large body of people, or if it works for somebody for a very long period of time, or if it works for somebody that's doing the same exact thing all over again, that doesn't mean it's going to work again.
Right.
At any given point in time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you need to know what to look for, know what to change, know how to personalize. You have to be able to personalize everything to yourself in order for it to be the perfect plan for you. That's the key, is the perfect plan for you right now, today, not you in high school, not you 20 years ago when you were in the best shape of your life, you today with the job and responsibilities and lifestyle stressors and schedule that you have today. How do we make the best plan for you today? So I have a list of things to consider. So what this podcast episode will not do is tell you what the perfect plan is for you, because that's not possible. You want that? Talk to us. We will coach you. We will work with you. Ourselves or one of our coaches will create the perfect plan for you based on a million factors. But short of that, here are some things to consider. One, your own genetic makeup. Genetically, you're going to be different from the person next to you, to the person next to you, to the person next to you. And that could be things like there might be exercises that just like genetically, structurally do not agree with you. You know, if you have a really long torso, for example, barbell back squats might suck for you, right? Or if you have really short arms, deadlift might be a very uncomfortable exercise for you, but there's no law that says you have to barbell back squat or deadlift. Can you find an alternative? Genetically, you are going to have different metabolism from the person next to you. So there is no one-size nutrition plan either, which is why these online calculators they're not going to pinpoint anything for you. They might give you a good ballpark to start with, but you are probably not like on the nose perfectly at the 50% mark of average, which is what most calculators are based off of.
Your lifestyle and your daily routine matter so much. You could think of yourself as a machine structurally and based on what you've done in the past and be like, and what you want to do and be like, I could do this, but what does your lifestyle look like? What are your occupational hazards and risks? And I don't just mean like someone that's working in a factory, like, oh, standing on your feet all day long, cutting hair, sitting at a computer, forward hunching, on your phone constantly looking down. Like, some people have ideal scenarios, although they're rare, they're out there, but most of us are dealing with some sort of things, and whether the actual stress of things that we do and the stress during the things that we do. Just to wake up and go to bed and do whatever you do during the day that has nothing to do with your health and nothing to do with your fitness. And these things will affect what you should be doing on paper when you shouldn't be doing on paper.
I would actually argue this might be the biggest piece of all of them is what is your lifestyle? Because a lot of programs are written with the idea in mind that someone just has all the time and resources in the world. That's how they're written. They're written in a vacuum, but most people can't do that.
I get a little bit of a beef with this because I don't want to create excuses, just be like, well, if your life is really stressful, then you should just not train hard. And then we're not saying that. We're not saying to be like, okay, well, work around everything meticulously to the point where like you're not training hard at all. Like, we're not, no. But there are ways to work with what you're doing and manage your training fatigue and choose the right exercises and focus on the hot spots on your body that are accumulating stress from like whatever it is that you do day in and day out, and still say, yes, push very hard, but do it in a way that is responsible, as opposed to doing it in a way where you're beating your head against the wall because you're trying to like do the next ridiculous program that you could do for 12 weeks and probably get hurt while you're doing it.
Yeah, I was going to say, and sustainable. Like, it's got to be push, yes, definitely push, because nothing great is going to happen in your comfort zone, but it's got to be sustainable as well. I have a couple clients who work out twice a day, which sounds like a crazy amount to work out, but it's 20-minute bursts because that's all their schedule allows for. I mean, they're pushing. It's not easy to get yourself to train twice in one day, but it is just for 20 minutes. Whereas like on paper, if I was writing a program in a vacuum, I wouldn't write it like that. I would write just straight days that were like, an hour-ish a piece. But that's just how it goes. And what do you do when you have to miss a day? How do you reroute for that? What do you do when you have to travel? Do you just skip all your workouts, or do you have a plan for that? Most pre-cut plans are not going to come with those contingencies in them.
Hey listeners, we hope you've been enjoying this episode, and we appreciate your love of all things vegan fitness. For those of you who want even more support on your vegan fitness journey, check out our Muscles by Brussels community and become a member. By joining the team, you are one of our exclusive VIPs. As a member, you'll find over 200 macro-friendly, high-protein recipes that can meet any of your meal planning needs. You'll also receive training programs that update monthly. This training has progressive overload built into it, so you can be sure if you're following the program, you are making progress. All of this and more is located inside our Vegan Proteins members only app. As a Muscles by Brussels member, you'll unlock bonus courses, challenges, and more every month. You'll also be invited to our live Zoom video calls, which happen 2 times a month, and are absolute gold to those who show up. And if you can't make the calls, don't worry, you have the opportunity to email us whenever you want. You'll receive a video response to all of your questions from one of the coaches here at Vegan Proteins every time you message us. Members also receive 40% off many of our other services. And of course, our private community of like-minded individuals is like no other.
Best of all, you can try this membership out for a full month at no cost to you with this special offer for our listeners only, because we appreciate and want to fully support you. Use the link in our show notes to sign up for your free trial today. We hope to see you on our next live coaching call.
So the next one would be psychological factors, and I actually think this is important as well. So your personal preferences do matter. I have a client, God bless her, Nadej. She is such a kick-ass bikini athlete. She loves to run. This is not the type of cardio that I would traditionally program for a bikini athlete, because there is a risk of compromising some lower body muscle tissue. Now, luckily, I haven't actually seen that with Nadej, but the point is I wouldn't have written it that way from scratch. But here's the thing. She loves it.
Plus, she's probably adapted to it over a very long period of time. It won't affect her in the same way as someone else that you're just programming it, is my guess.
But she loves it. It makes her happy. She looks forward to it. She's able to adhere 110% because it's something that she likes. Versus if I had her do a different type of cardio that she dreaded, might be a lot harder to adhere to. I mean, maybe not for her because she's a machine. But, you know, if I have something on, we all have that exercise that we've seen in our plan that we're just like, oh, no, I don't want to do it today. And, you know, sometimes you should do exercises that you don't like. I'm not saying take out every exercise you don't like. But let's say somebody is just like straight scared to get under a barbell for a back squat. Maybe we don't program that. Maybe we program something else instead, because I'm not looking to make someone anxious while they walk into the gym. I want them to go in there feeling confident that they're able to do what's on the table. You know, also a lot of programs are not going to have a contingency plan for taking a mental health day occasionally, which again, I don't think you should lean into too hard, because that can be a slippery slope. Listen, sometimes you're not going to want to go to the gym, and the best thing you can do is force your ass to go to the gym. And sometimes the best thing you're going to do is say, hey, self, you need a day. Let's move this to tomorrow. You know, it just, you gotta know yourself when to push and when to hold back. But this quote unquote perfect plan on paper is certainly not going to do that.
Being realistic with what your goals are is super duper important. Writing that out as opposed to getting lost in the information that's out there, because, well, let's say that, for example, you want to be a competitive powerlifter and be in a meet, but you've also not powerlifted at all. And you, again, like back to that original, I don't even remember the program I'm thinking about, but you do the thing where there's like...
It's like the Candido Bulldog program.
Something like that, where it's literally, everyone makes fun of it as the program that will get you hurt, and they also strangely want to do it because they want to do it just to see if they can
I love the
get
Candido
hurt.
Bulldog program. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just used it as an example.
You get my point, though, right? I don't even know if that was a one, but that's like just the thing. It's like, and maybe you do it as a one-off, but if that's like how you cycle your training and it doesn't directly relate to what your goals are, you're either going to get injured, or you're going to be achy, or you're not going to be getting to your goal because you'll develop the wrong adaptations in your system to properly get stronger in that one particular example. Context really matters as far as what your goal is,
right?
And how far away or how close you are to it, and how specific your short and long-term goal is, and what you should be doing based on how your body's responding. And it really matters that you pay attention to what's happening and get realistic about what you need to do to get there and where you're currently at, as opposed to just being like, well, I'm a pusher, and this thing will get me there, and I'm just gonna keep repeating it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times if you like look up beginner weightlifting program, intermediate weightlifting program, advanced weightlifting program, I actually usually think the beginner programs are the best most of the time. But if you say, hey, I'm intermediate or advanced, and you go find a program, I actually think most of the advanced programs are trash. just trash. It's like real exercises, real strength training exercises with like some friggin' burpees thrown in the middle of it, which I think is literally one of the stupidest things somebody could do, is to just throw all of this explosive plyometric cardio in between their heavy lifts when the goal is increased strength or increased hypertrophy. Like, but they call that advanced because like technically that would be harder to do, right? Like you'd be way more drained at the end of that. Does that make it a better workout though? Does that make it more perfect for an advanced athlete? I don't think so. That's my 2 cents.
There's so many thoughts that I have about all of this, and I think I could easily go on a rant or just go all over the place. But we'll save some of that for this ongoing conversation and see what you get out of.
But it goes back to what you just said. Like it all comes down to not just your level of like your beginner, intermediate, or advanced, but also the goal. If the goal is to improve just muscular endurance, cool. That advanced one is great. If your goal is to increase strength, that program is trash. So, but programs aren't always great at telling you specifically what it is they're trying to achieve. Most of them are just trying to make you feel worked by the end of your workout.
That
without a longer goal in
right
sight.
there, like the first day that I started personal training, and the company was like, make this person happy and excited and just get them interested.
Mm-hmm.
And you get caught up in that hype, and you get caught up in wanting them there, and you get caught up trying to give them what they want, and then
you don't give them what they need.
And this is something that you can do without a personal trainer, without a coach, to yourself as well, whether you're getting caught up in some sort of program that you're really sold on, or you're sold on the idea yourself that you want to, I don't know, get hyper-focused on a goal or get super focused on enjoying, and you're just like in no man's land where you're not really accomplishing anything, but you're moving, but then you're upset because you're not doing what you want to be doing. You feel like you don't look how you train, or you're wasting your time, and you're just like, oh, what's the point of all this?
Yeah, that's a huge, this is something that I could talk about for a really long time, is that, personal trainers, part of what they're going to do is they need you to feel worked by the end of your workout. I told you guys I've been going to these group classes at my friend's gym, and I love that gym. I think the women that train there are awesome. It's very, very fun, but there is that element of I will finish a class and I'll just be like, well, I feel worked. And of course, all movement, all exercise, I think is a net positive. So there's that. But I will say to myself, like, but what was the point of that? And I've actually talked to Dawn about this, the owner, because she is like she gets it. She understands how to write a program to reach a goal, but she says, every time I try to do that kind of class, people don't want to come to it because people don't feel like they're getting their money's worth when they're doing a program that's actually going to get them long-term results. And, even I have felt this writing some of our group training, is that, our group training is very, very good, but there is also an element in there of, okay, going back to that psychological factors, it's got to be fun, right? And for a lot of people, big, meaty, slow weight training is not fun. So we got to throw something fun and exciting into those workout programs to keep people adhering.
Do it. Get them interested. Get them involved. Do it once in a while. If it is your mainstay and what you do for months and years on end, though, you're probably going to be disappointed with the results in the process.
Right. And where's the line? Right? Like, where is the line? I don't have an answer to that question. But it's something that, like, you, the listener, should consider when using another program or working with a program. It's like, okay, where's my big bang for the buck exercises in here? Like, these will pay off. And then can we sprinkle in the fun? Unless you are lucky enough to think all of that stuff is fun. I think that stuff's fun. I think all the other quote unquote fun stuff people sprinkle in is just torture, personally. But Apparently, I'm in the minority there. Take that for what you will. We could talk about that one for a long time. The next one is going to be, and this is a huge one, huge, is injury history and any physical limitations that somebody has. So personal injury history and physical limitations, like they have to be considered when creating a training plan. If someone has a double hip replacement, yeah, we're gonna do things a little bit differently for that person than somebody that doesn't have a double hip replacement. And I have worked with people with double hip replacements. So that's not like an impossible scenario. That happens. Also, she also won all of her shows in the 50 plus category in bikini. So,
now I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I have the wrong person in mind.
So, but knee problems, shoulder problems, elbow problems, all of these are going to dictate and change exercise selection, training frequency, training intensity. It's going to change all of that up. But if a program is coming from the standpoint that everybody has to barbell squat, for example, there's not a lot of wiggle room to change that up. Or everybody has to barbell bench press. There's not a lot of wiggle room to change that up.
People get very hung up on the 3 barbell movements when they're super into strength and when they're super into bodybuilding. And they are arguably necessary in most scenarios. Not all, but most. They're also not the end-all be-all.
Yeah. And unless you're doing a sport that specifically requires you to do a certain lift, you don't have to do that lift. So unless you're powerlifting as a competitor, you don't have to squat, bench, and deadlift. If you're not Olympic lifting as a competitor, you don't have to clean, jerk, and snatch. You don't have to. We can find something else. So it's one of the things that I do truly love about bodybuilding is there are 1,000 paths to get there, no matter what injury you're facing. But the other thing is, let's say you have an injury that limits your range. You're like, oh, I can still squat, but you can actually only squat like a quarter of the way down because of your limitations. You might not change. You might be like, I'm just going to do those quarter squats. There's probably something else we could do that would be more effective, So
Unless you really do love doing quarter squats because for some reason that movement you really enjoy it. But it's going to be supplemental. You still need to do something else, right? So I don't feel like you should completely walk away from something that for some reason is more than utility based in your training, like you're actually enjoying, like you want to do it.
Well, that goes back to like the enjoyment thing, right?
But you still also have to make sure that you're making up for the gaps in your training for what you can't do with said exercise, and also program that exercise properly.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to nutritional considerations. What are some reasons somebody, the perfect plan might not work for somebody nutritionally?
I don't even know where to begin here. There's so many. Oh gosh. Well, you could start with the easy stuff like a meal plan or a macro plan or weighing and measuring or being habitual about how you're eating, meaning like I say intuitive, but I hate the word intuitive at this point because but when I say habitual, I mean like kind of like I know how I'm supposed to eat. I figured it out this past couple weeks and I'm just gonna eat like this. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be honest and true to myself. So all of those ways are doable and they're very structured,
but they all have limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not all going to work for everybody.
Mm-mm.
I love macro tracking. I think flexible dieting is one of the most foolproof ways I've ever seen somebody to be able to get in the best shape possible. That said, it is not for everybody. For a lot of people, this is a one-way ticket to neuroses town, right? Like they're going to develop so much neuroticism around these numbers that it's actually not going to improve the quality of their life at all. It could harm it. Meal plans can be really helpful, or they can, exacerbate black and white thinking around good and bad foods. Intuitive eating can be great. And also Some people's bodies are telling them to do things that are absolutely not going to get them towards their goals. Like there's no one perfect way for everybody. And like you said at the beginning, what works for somebody for a time might not work for them forever. Somebody at the very beginning of their journey, sort of just cleaning up their diet, so to speak, eating more healthy whole foods, decreasing the amount of like packaged processed foods, that might get them results for a really long time. And then it might stop and you might have to switch to something else. On the flip side of that, flexible dieting could work for somebody for a really, really, really long time. And then it just might not be something that they need anymore to move forward. And a different style of eating might actually improve their quality of life more.
Yeah. And the same exact thing could either do harm or benefit depending on where you're at.
Depending on the person. Depending on their history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy when you think about it. And maybe that can cause decision-making fatigue or worry, if you will, that, I'm just not cut out for anything. I just can't do it. Well, that's not necessarily true. Sometimes a little bit of introspection and a little bit of analytical work with seeing what you're doing and what is and isn't working and asking questions is the best thing for you, even if it means that you're not following something at that very moment in time, as long as you get to where you're going to be and you eventually start to do something, as opposed to just looking at something and being like, I just can't do it. Mm-hmm. Or I'm doing it and it works, I'm just going to keep doing it because it seems to be working. Think about your programming and don't necessarily be like, well, I'm doing this because it's on paper, so it must be right.
Next, I would say sensitivities, allergies, food sensitivities, all of those things are going to be different from person to person. That's really, really important to be able to customize around yourself. A lot of programs will come with a meal plan that tells you what to eat. But if you're allergic or sensitive even to some of the foods in that plan, what are you going to do? How are you going to change that? A nutrition plan on paper might look ideal, but if it's like having you clutching your stomach at the end of every day in the fetal position, probably not the perfect plan for you. And sometimes it's not even like an allergy or a sensitivity. Sometimes it can be like a gut health issue. And I don't want to get too far into that because nobody totally understands the science on a lot of those things, but different people are going to have different colonies of bacteria in their guts, which is going to make them respond to different foods differently. I think people should try to keep as many different kinds of foods in their diet as humanly possible, but sometimes you got to cut something out because you realize it's bothering you. That's just the way that it goes.
It also makes a lot of sense to look at your environment, your social circles. What are things like? Your work life, your family, the cultural things, like where you live. All these things will affect what you should be doing, what you should consider, like your process when it comes to how you eat, how you exercise, all that. This is a pretty broad topic. I'm painting with a broad brush here, but it's for good reason. There's a lot of factors to consider when it comes to your environment, and you should absolutely plan for it as opposed to just try to move through it and put your head down and do the thing. That kind of attitude works, and I think part of that is necessary, but if you don't consider how to do something long-term or do something in a way that will improve or maintain your quality of life, you might wind up shooting yourself in the foot, even just with your bottom line results.
Mm-hmm. So I think at the end of the day, when you're trying to create or find a plan that works for you, it's very important to consider and ask yourself, what are the things about me that are different from the average or the norm or somebody with all the time and resources in the world? Consider all of these things. Try to foresee issues that will come up in your day-to-day schedule, in your food life, your social life, and try to create contingencies for those things. You need to have a plan for when the plan doesn't go to plan. It's very, very critical. This can be the difference between failure and success. Do you have a plan for when things get weird? Because they will. Very, very important, because at the end of the day, the most important thing about any fitness plan, any nutrition plan, is going to come down to adherence. How much of the time can you stick to this plan? If you can't confidently say you can stick to the plan more than 80% of the time, it's probably not going to get you very far, and it's worth tweaking that plan until you can confidently say, I can do that more than 80% of the time. That's how you're going to get results. Moving on to our question and answer segment here. Giacomo, what are some of your favorite strategies to handle food cravings while in a caloric deficit?
What kind of caloric deficit are we talking here? Like a regular, not a extreme one, correct? Because there are all kinds of different things, but there are most things that I would not recommend. There are some things I would not recommend for most people. Put it that way. So I'm going to make sure that we don't bring those out, because there are all kinds of ways where you can do unhealthy things to cope with being in a calorie deficit. But there are tried and true ways to actually, more than cope, to, dare I say, enjoy a calorie deficit, right? For one, and this is a psychological one, and maybe a little piece of low-hanging fruit, but dangle the carrot, think about what results you're going to get and like focus on that, because it's pretty rewarding when you, especially like for calorie deficits, because you're leaning out. And I think focusing on that and embracing that and enjoying, as opposed to like holding out for it, could be really motivating. As long as after the fact you realize, like, wherever you land, it's not gonna, you don't get addicted to the feeling of getting closer to your target goal, your end look. And now I'm going on a tangent. So let me reel it back in. Let me give you some hard tips. Eat voluminous food. Eat vegetables twice a day. Nutrient-dense food is going to give you more energy. It's going to make you feel better. Food that tastes really good because it's hyper palatable and calorically dense might fill a need. So sometimes that stuff's okay, but it could also backfire and you wind up wanting more and more of it, and it makes it harder to be less food focused and to stick to your plan. Food that is nutrient dense and rich in the kinds of vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and has the right just feel good stuff to it, the right kind of energy, it's going to be good for your health. It's going to be better for your energy levels. It's going to be more satiating because your plate will be larger. And I know this is kind of, it can't be overstated, put it that way. That is the way to go. That is truly the way to go. Carbonated beverages could help, but be mindful of what you're drinking, because if your carbonated beverages is soda here and there, fine. But if you're like pounding soda every day.
You mean a diet soda?
Yes, of course. That kind of like aspartame and all that stuff, eventually feels bad in your gut, and then you wind up just not digesting your food. You have digestive discomfort.
Shout out to Zevia, by the way.
Heck yeah.
Super pricey, but it doesn't have aspartame and sucralose in it, so I'm a fan.
Yeah, or like I like opening up a can of regular seltzer and I just drink that straight, but sometimes I want to fancy it up a little bit and I'll put like my own little stevia drops in it, or like my own stevia sweetener or something in it, but not always. So I have the option of going sweet and I have the option of just having a little bit of bubbly, if you will. So stuff like that. These might sound like silly ideas, but they do help. Staying hydrated makes a big difference. If you're dehydrated, you're more likely going to want to like fill the void in your stomach, because your stomach is going to be more empty than usual, especially if you're not, well, even with voluminous food, eventually your body understands that you're not getting in calories. But staying hydrated helps a lot. I mean, I could keep going. Do you have any tips you want to add, Danny?
I would say have some handy recipes that actually would scratch the itch of whatever craving you have. If you know that you crave pizza all the time, can you find a macro-friendly, like healthy version of pizza where you could still get those flavors? Cool, keep that. Is it sweets that you like? Can you find like a healthy, desserty type of recipe that still is easy to work into your macros? Keep that on hand. Obviously, you can go too far with any of these things, but it can be helpful to just have some stuff that fits the bill.
Danny, how do you know if you're losing weight fast enough? What is a good rate of loss when trying to lose fat while still maintaining building muscle mass?
So a good rate of weight loss or fat loss specifically is 0.5 to 1.5% of your body weight per week. So if you are 150 pounds, that would be anywhere from 0.75 pounds to 2.25 pounds of loss per week. Now, the lighter and or leaner you are, the lower end of that you're going to be on. If you are already quite lean and you're losing 1.5% of your body weight per week, you're probably losing muscle at that point. But, if you have a lot of weight that you would like to lose to get into a desired body fat area, then maybe the higher end of that is okay. But that is the easiest calculation that I know. Obviously, keeping the protein high is going to help prevent muscle wasting. And then if you were trying to build muscle, the rate would be 0.5 to 1.5% of your body weight gained per month, not per week, per month. So again, if you're 150 pounds trying to build muscle, that would be 0.75 to 2.25 pounds of gain per month. So hopefully those numbers are helpful for somebody. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels Radio. Please feel free to stay in touch with us. We're on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. You can come join our Muscles by Brussels Facebook group. And of course, you can always find us at veganproteins.com. Check out our various coaching levels. We have our Muscles by Brussels membership. We have a fat loss challenge coming up in August, and we always have our one-on-one coaching as well. So you can fill out an application there. Once again, my name is Danny.
And I'm Giacomo.
And we will talk to you soon.